There are more and more handmade businesses out there that are selling digital products these days. That can be printable items or digital downloads, such as, like patterns and planners, you name it. Some sellers have a mix of digital and physical products. Others have a completely digital product offering. And I see many of these handmade sellers run into problems when they are pricing their digital products, because it's a bit of a different process than pricing physical handmade products. And there are 4 quite common mistakes that I see them make. So in today's video, I want to talk about those 4 common mistakes to avoid when you are pricing your digital products, to help you set a price that will sell your products, but that also will cover your cost. Ready? Let's dive in. Bonjour, my name is Deb and I'm the founder of Tizico, a membership community for makers and handmade shop owners just like your fabulous self. You can learn more about our community, Tizit HQ, via the link that I'll put below this video. But for now, let's jump straight into today's conversation. 4 mistakes to avoid when pricing digital products. Before we start talking about the common mistakes, let's quickly clarify what the term digital products actually mean. When you sell a digital product, there is nothing physical that gets shipped to the customer at any point in the transaction. So it's important to understand that they are different from print-on-demand products. Print-on-demand products still get shipped to the customer. They just get printed or produced or manufactured by someone else that's using your designs. So today we're talking about digital downloads, things like patterns, cards, planners, or artwork that people would download and print themselves. So we are basically talking about anything that's digitally available and that people can instantly download to their computer. So now that we've covered what exactly the term digital product means, so we're on the same page, let's move on and talk about the 4 common mistakes that I see quite often. The first mistake I see sellers make is forgetting that there is still a cost involved. It happens very easily because with digital items, you think that because you sell digital files, you don't really have a cost to make them. Of course, there is no material or supplies cost. You won't have to account for things like wire, beads, paint, felt, because of course your product is digital. There is also no labor cost. Now you may actually have a bit of labor if you manually process orders and send the digital files out, but if that's the case, I would actually really recommend that you consider automating that. There are many tools now that are available to help you make the download instantly available to your customers without you having to manually process anything, which frees up a lot of your valuable time. But if your digital files involve a bit of personalization or customization, then by all means you would add that labor cost into your total cost calculation. The main cost you need to account for though in digital products that many sellers overlook is overhead, because even if you sell only digital items, you do have an overhead. It might be for design software that you have to subscribe to, like Adobe Photoshop or Canva, but for things also like website or hosting fees, utilities, rent, you want your digital pricing to take those into account. So for example, if you add up those costs, you may find that you actually have a $250 overhead each month. When you add up your website and hosting fees, software fees, and the like, it starts to add up quickly. You want to be clear on how much your overhead is, what those fixed costs for you are every month that you incur no matter how many products you sell. And then you want to use that overhead cost that you calculated as your break-even point. Now you can ask yourself, how many products do I need to sell at what price point to cover this $250 expense that I'm going to have every single month? So how many products do I have to sell at what price point to break even, to just get to the point where I'm starting to make a profit? So if you decide to price your digital patterns at say $8 each, you're going to have to make 32 sales before you start seeing a profit. But if you sell your patterns at $12 each, you only have to sell 21 to break even. Now, I'm not saying 12 is the best price, that's just a random example. What you need to do next is ask yourself if it's easier to sell 32 of your products at $8 in your specific niche, considering your market and the research that you will have done, or is it easier to sell 21 products at $12? You can see how very important it is to account for these costs in your product price, or you may set your price too low and not cover your expenses or struggle to make a profit. The next common mistake I see in digital product pricing is forgetting to factor in perceived value and perceived costs when choosing choosing a price and basing your price on competitors' prices only. The perceived value of your products is the perceived benefits that your ideal customers feel they get by purchasing your products minus the perceived cost that they foresee. So to calculate these, you have to clearly understand who your ideal customer is, because the perceived benefits and perceived cost of your products are going to be very different based on who you're asking. For example, let's say you sell patterns that can be used on a cricut, I don't know how to pronounce it. And your patterns include like a tutorial video showing how to load your patterns into the machine, or perhaps some color ideas for color combination that looks very good together for this specific pattern. You know that by including extras that benefit someone who is just getting started using a cricut machine, your products will be very valuable in the eye of that specific customer, but not as valuable to someone who is very experienced and just wants the pattern. The customer who is a beginner will see your listing and say, I will pay a bit more for that because I value the tutorial and color ideas since I'm not very knowledgeable about these things yet. But the experienced customer may say, I don't really need all those extra bells and whistles, and I don't really want to pay for them because I can just buy a pattern for a bit cheaper. So you can see that even in the same niche, you want to be really clear on who you're targeting with each product and each collection and with your shop in general, so that you can understand what the perceived value of each of your item is in the eyes of your ideal customer. When pricing each product, be sure to think about what are the perceived benefits of this specific product, the one that you're thinking of pricing right now, in the eyes of your ideal customer. Once you've done that, you also need to consider the perceived cost. Some digital products require that the customer do more work and or purchase additional things after buying the digital product. For example, if you order a digital design for wedding invitations, you'll still need to get online, upload that design and order it from a printing center somewhere. Or if you order artwork, you will need to print that artwork and then buy a frame to display it in. The customer will factor that time and extra money into their purchase decision because they also have the option to order pre-printed wedding invitations that will be shipped to them directly, or pre-framed artwork that arrives ready to hang on their wall. And they'll compare cost versus time and effort before making their purchase decision. So when you're looking at perceived value and how your ideal customers are looking at your products, you need to consider both the perceived value they are getting from them and the perceived cost that they will encounter if they purchase your product, and factor both of these into your pricing decision. Then you work through different pricing and resulting sales scenarios. If you'd like to dive deeper into this, we talk about how to do it and walk you through the process in the TZHQ pricing course, which I'll link to down below. Go and check it out. Now on to the third mistake I see sellers make when pricing digital goods, which is that they think they can't change their price once they set it. And I want to tell you, don't feel like once you set your price, you need to leave them there forever, because you should always be testing and experimenting and adjusting your prices based on what you see and what you learn. Nothing is set in stone, and especially not with digital products. And you don't need to find the perfect price immediately. In the digital pattern example we talked about earlier, you will never know if $8 is better than $12 for your digital patterns if you don't experiment and try to slowly increase your price to see what the market can bear and what happens to your sales when you do. The fancy business term for this is price elasticity, how much the demand for your product can change when you increase or decrease the price of your products. You might find, for example, that $9 and $10 don't reduce your sales, but at $11 you encounter that psychological upper limit where your customers decide that that's too expensive now. Or maybe not. Maybe you might find that you can actually push your price to $13 or $14 before you hit that upper limit. So this is really something that you have to keep in mind. You have to be testing, you have to be experimenting. And don't only look at your quantity of sales, because even if you sell less product at $13, you may make a lot more money. Less can be more. The final mistake I see sellers make that I want to address is trying to include design time in your pricing equation. I frequently have sellers ask, hey Deb, do I account for the time that I spent actually creating my digital products in my labor cost? And the short answer is no. The time it takes you to come up with the idea for your design, or the design time for your digital product is not a labor cost per se. Think of it this way: if it takes you 10 minutes to come up with a brilliant design, it doesn't make it less valuable than if it takes you like 20 hours, right? And vice versa. And if you were to include 20 hours in your labor cost or your overhead, it would absolutely blow up your prices and be unfair to your customers, because after the original design is done, you can actually resell the same digital product without needing to reinvest 20 hours each time. So that's the beauty of selling digital products, right? That's what makes them very scalable. So how do you afford the time to create new designs and come up with new ideas? By making sure your profit margins are healthy enough, but not inside of your labor or overhead cost. So in that sense, yes, it is included in your price, but as part of your profit margin, not inside your overhead or labor cost. You can see that there are a lot of variables to consider when pricing your products, digital or physical. And I have a video that walks you through each step of pricing your handmade products that's showing somewhere around my face on your screen right now for you to go and watch next. So go and click on it. Make sure to subscribe as well. And until next time, au revoir.